for either a chain or cover stitch, we're going to start by taking a look at what we call the pretension guide. This sits at the back side of the machine, and it's very similar to the pretension guides that we used for the overlock stitches. Each position is assigned a needle position, C1, C2, and C3. It's the setup that makes threading those guides or that guide easy. And to set that thread up, we're going to place the thread itself into the position that we're going to use. And in this case, it's the C2. So I'm taking that thread, I'm sliding it into the disc area for that thread. And what that does is it aligns that thread with the position on the guide. So I'm going straight back, and then I take the thread straight down so that it's almost up against the bed of the machine. And I slide the thread to the right. And again, that's me sitting in front of the machine. I'm sliding that thread to the right. And what you'll hear happen, or what you'll hear actually, is a small little click. And that tells me that the thread is in that guide. There's that click of the threads in the guide. My next step is to continue the threading process by taking that needle thread underneath the flat guide in the front, or actually behind that flat guide in the front. And then I'm going to come up and over, which is basically very similar to a take-up lever on your sewing machine, up and over. And up to this point, my presser foot has been up to ensure that the thread is seated in all of the guides. I'm going to now lower the presser foot because the last guide I have to thread is right above the needle, very similar to your sewing machine. Thread is going to butt up against the very front or first guide, and then it's going to wrap around or go on top of the next guide, wrap around to the back side, and now it's sitting in the front, and my last step is to thread the eye of the needle. Let's take a look at how we're going to thread the C1 position. Again, that thread, and the easiest way to do it is placed here on the top, because again, it aligns it with the position on the back side. It goes in between that little V. I'm going to take it flat against the machine, and again, sitting in front of the machine, I'm sliding that thread to the right. You hear a little click, and then you continue to thread your C1 needle all the way to the needle. Let's take a look at C3. Same principle. Always place that thread here first, and always make sure that presser foot is up, because what that does is, again, that thread in that position aligns it correctly with the guide on the back. Place the thread back against the bed of the machine, and again, sitting in front of the machine, I'm sliding that thread to the right. You hear that click, you know it's in place, and then I just pull that thread forward and continue threading the needle. That's how easy it is to thread the chain needles for either the chain stitch or cover stitch. It's all about setting the thread up here to ensure that you get your thread in the proper position on that back pretension guide. You may find that the chain needle pretension guide on your machine looks very similar to this. The action is the same as the previous guide. The thread is still going to sit in each of these needle positions. Thread comes straight back, again, aligned with the guide on the back side. And in this case, for the C2, that thread is going to slide from the right, sitting in front of the machine. Let's take a look at C3. Thread again sits in that guide to start with on top. Take that thread straight back, thread straight down, and that will align with the opening on that guide. Thread gets clicked or moved to the right, again sitting in front of the machine. The one difference is that C1 position. With the thread in position on top, I take the thread straight back. It shares the first portion of the guide with the C2. So the thread has to be moved to the left, sitting in front of your machine, that's to the left, and it will snap into place. And you'll hear the click when it's snapped into place. At this point, once we have our thread in the correct position, C1, C2, or C3, we'll thread our needle.